When it comes to weight loss, no two people are the same. That's why Noom builds personalized plans based on your unique psychology and biology. Take Brittany. After years of unsustainable diets, Noom helped her lose 20 pounds and keep it off.
I was definitely in a yo-yo cycle for years of just losing weight, gaining weight, and it was exhausting.
And Stephanie. She's a former D1 athlete who knew she couldn't out-train her diet, and she lost 38 pounds.
My relationship to food before Noom was never consistent.
And Evan, he can't stand salads, but he still lost 50 pounds with Noom.
I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. Even through the pickiness, Noom taught me that building better habits builds a healthier lifestyle. I'm not doing this to get to a number. I'm doing this to feel better.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom users compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
It took a lifetime to find the person you want to marry. Finding the perfect engagement ring is a lot easier. At BlueNile.com, you can find or design the ring you've always dreamed of with help from Blue Nile's jewelry experts who are on hand 24/7 to answer questions, and the ease and convenience of shopping online. For a limited time, get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com. That's $50 off with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com.
Super real.
Hey, I'm Julian Morgans, and you're listening to What It Was Like, the show that asks people who have lived through big, dramatic events what it was like. Hey, Happy New Year. Wherever you are in the world, Happy New Year. We're excited about 2025. Last year, this podcast kind of hit critical mass. It became my full-time job. So thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks for coming along for the journey. And this year, I want to reward you with great stories, with like the best stories that we can find. And we're going to start with this one. It's a long one, all right? You might have looked at the number next to it being like, over an hour. Wow. But this is good. So congratulations. You've clicked on a banger. The other week, I told you that my favorite technique for finding stories is to look at movies and to see if their plots have played out in the real world. And this week we're doing it again with a film that I've always loved, Notting Hill. I think I first saw Notting Hill at the age of about 14, and I thought it was just such a fun film. And it was kind of this thing that I was like, I hope that happens to me one day. I think that's what appeals to everyone about Notting Hill. It's the story of just like a regular person, this guy played by Hugh Grant who owns a bookstore, and one day he just happens to meet this Hollywood megastar played by Julia Roberts, and they fall in love and have a relationship, and, you know, shenanigans ensue. Anyway, I always thought that this would be an interesting narrative template to explore in the real world. So I've been chasing this story for years. You know, this is a thing that happens. Celebrities really do date regular people, but the regular people who experience this, they never want to talk about it. So I've emailed so many people. I think I started emailing people in about like 2018. Very few have ever responded until finally a few weeks ago. My guest today is Myah Morgenstern, and I came across Myah on TikTok. She's been posting these viral videos about her experience dating an anonymous Hollywood actor. And I reached out and I asked her to come on the podcast, and there was just one condition. I asked her, Myah, please, do you think you could tell us who you dated? And she was like, yeah, sure, no worries. She dated a guy named Tony Revolori. And you might be wondering, wait, who's Tony Revolori? But trust me, you've seen this guy before. He's one of those actors whose faces you just recognize even if you don't know his name. He's been a long-time collaborator with Wes Anderson, with his most famous role as the lobby boy in the Grand Budapest Hotel. He also appeared in The French Dispatch and Asteroid City. But he's been in a few Marvel movies as well. He's played a character named Flash Thompson in 4 Spiderman films. So maybe Tony isn't an A-lister, but he's definitely Hollywood enough to provide a pretty strange ride if just a normal person dates him. And today, Myah spills the beans on what it's like to date a celebrity. And I love this story. You know, it's such a familiar fantasy. This idea of marrying or dating up. It's so entrenched in our culture. Think about Cinderella or Pretty Woman or any story where someone is plucked from obscurity and they're given money and power and prestige. It's a narrative that's captivated us for centuries. And here's how it plays out in the real world. But as Myah reveals, the fantasy comes with some complications. Especially when you're dating someone with a Hollywood-sized ego. So anyway, that's enough talk from me. Let's do it. Here is Myah Morgenstern. Hey Myah, welcome to the show.
Hi.
That was a very cute response, just to immediately jump into giggling.
You know what? Can I just say real fast? This is actually how I am. I'm like a chronic giggler. And I know we're going to get into it, but so many people think that my laugh is like this contrived fake thing that I'm doing. And it's really genuinely just how I am.
It's just you. It's just you. No, I didn't think it was fake nor contrived. How horrible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So many people. I was like, oh my gosh. Anyways.
Let's talk about you. And you live in LA now, but you didn't grow up there, right? So give us a sense of like your childhood and how you got to this point.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in Fort Lauderdale. So I'm originally from South Florida. I lived in South Florida my whole entire life. So I was raised by my mom. I'm the youngest of 5. I was homeschooled for a long time. I went to college in Orlando, Florida. So like 45 minutes from Disney. Wow. And then after I graduated, I went to film school. So I went to university for film school, and I graduated in May of 2018. And in July of 2018, I drove to Los Angeles and moved there. And so I lived in LA ever since, so 2018 to now.
Wow. So this is kind of like the aspiring actor mythology here. You know, this is the drive across the country to chase your dreams in Los Angeles. It must have felt pretty cool to do that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stereotype, but it is something where, you know, ever since I was a little kid, I vividly remember, like I knew from the age of 5 that I wanted to be in film. And when I moved to Los Angeles, my approach was, I'm going to tackle it from both sides. So I'm going to pursue acting, but then I'm also going to pursue directing, because if one or the other hits, then I'll get to do the other one. So let's just try both.
Yes.
And so that's really what happened. And yeah, it was extremely exciting. I hold on to that feeling. I remember so vividly that summer, like driving into Los Angeles and just seeing, it was nighttime when we finally got in, and just seeing all of the cars and just lights from all of the traffic. And it really felt like a scene in La La Land where you're like, I'm here.
Yes.
And that's a feeling that I'm like nostalgic for, because it was so exciting to just like finally get there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I can presume that you've spent some time on film sets in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Did you meet Tony on a film set?
No, I wish we did. Honestly, I think that that would have been more fun.
Okay.
I think it would have been interesting, because my career in filmmaking has always been behind the camera, whereas obviously he is in front of the camera. And so I think surely it would have been more romantic if we met on a film set in a very, you know, Hollywood kind of way.
Yeah.
But we did not.
How did you meet?
In the most boring, modern way, we met on a dating app.
That's okay.
But I met Tony on Raya. So I was on Raya. Obviously, his profile came up on my dating app. And I remember thinking, oh, I bet you he's funny. That was my first reaction. I was like, I bet you he's funny. I am obviously somebody that likes to laugh. I don't hide that fact about me. And so I thought, great, let's just see.
Did you know him? You saw the photos. You were like, oh, it's the guy from Wes Anderson films.
Okay, I will say this as a film major.
Yeah.
And this is where my brain unfortunately romanticizes things. Is as a film major, my freshman year, it was 2013. 2014. And this was when Grand Budapest came out. And I had never seen a Wes Anderson movie. And I was in my first semester of film school, and Grand Budapest was a required film. And so I watched it, and I remember thinking, oh my God, this is the most amazing movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I thought Tony was so phenomenal in it. And it was one of my favorite films that I had been, all throughout. And so when he showed up on my Myah, I thought, yes, of course. Like, I knew him from Grand Budapest Hotel, but I didn't really know his other filmography. And I can't emphasize enough that I was not a fangirl. Like, I did not know him in that way. I didn't know anything about his career otherwise, but I did know that he was, of course, the lobby boy.
Of course. Of course.
And I was like, and as a freshman in film school, I did think the lobby boy was cute. Like,
Yeah.
I was so jealous of, and it's also as an actress, like, I was jealous of Saoirse Ronan's character, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, whatever. So in a kind of serendipitous way, I did think, like, oh, how cute is this? That, like, a dorky film major is, like, matching with, a Wes Anderson character. Like,
Yeah.
to me, I think that's cute.
I think that's cute. I
Uh,
think that's cute, and it's also like, what an amazing experience. This is so LA, and you're like, oh, I get to go on a date with this guy. How fun!
Yeah. Yeah. So, so I matched with him, and
Can I ask, what was his opener?
so it was Thanksgiving, and he asked me, I think it was just something to the effect of like, oh, what are you doing? Or like, hey, how are you? Like, are you doing anything for, the holiday? And I said, yeah, I'm skateboarding. I'm going skateboarding. And he made some quip about like, oh gosh, like if I went skateboarding, I would like bust my knees. And I thought that was, I don't know, funny. And then he started talking about, his little brother, and how he's like, yeah, I'm going to go chase my little brother down the street. And so he was kind of saying all of these quirky things that I thought were interesting. And I was like, okay, well, have fun. And so then the next day, he sent me a message that was, something to the effect of, at the risk of moving too fast, can I give you my number? And I was like, sure, you can give me your number. And so we started texting very quickly after that. And he asked me on a date, I think that Tuesday. So, Thursday, Thanksgiving. And then he was like, when are you free next? I think I have Sunday or Tuesday. Do you want to go on a date? Like, can I take you out to dinner? And in my mind, I'm like, getting a date in LA is so hard. I was like, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so he took me to a sushi restaurant near his place.
Nice.
And I remember being like, okay, if this is the only date I get with this guy, I want to make a good impression. So I have this like kind of pleated skirt. It's like a short skirt. It's like a schoolgirl kind of skirt. And I feel like all guys think girls in school skirts are like very attractive. So I like put on my
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Yes, so I put on my schoolgirl skirt and I put on my tights and I had like a sweater. It was very like Velma, Scooby-Doo, but kind of like emo and cool. And I painted my nails black. I had all my rings on, and drove to his part of town to go on our sushi date. And I remember I got there like kind of early, and I texted him and I was like, hey, I'm here, but no rush. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so surprised that you're there on time. I was like expecting you to be late. I'm so sorry. Let me rush over there. And I was like, no worries, all good. So I was waiting outside the restaurant and it was really dark and he just kind of like walked up. And when I looked at him and he looked at me, there was this moment where I was like, hi. He had this sort of very soft, kind of quiet demeanor. He has these glasses that he wears when he is meeting somebody or if he's in a situation where he might socially get nervous because it almost like adds a layer of protection.
Yeah.
And so I remember being like, this is just this like cute, nerdy guy with like glasses and he seems so sweet. And he was a gentleman, you know, he was very much like the whole after you and what would you like? Like he was very, very polite.
How attractive.
Which for me was like, it was very attractive.
Yeah.
He was very well dressed. Like he was very well spoken.
Did he smell good?
I think he did. He didn't smell bad.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah, that's the main
that.
thing. That's the key.
Yes. And, you know, it was truly such a lovely day. I mean, really, actually one of the best first dates I've ever had.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very, very nice. You know, when we sat down at the restaurant, we did not talk about each other's careers, which I think in LA, that's usually an opener. It's always, well, what do you do? It was one of those things where I felt like, okay, we are not meeting to talk about our careers, or that is not going to be a part of this relationship. We're both secure in what we do. We're just genuinely getting to meet each other. You know, like I'm very secure in my career. He's of course secure in his career. And so to be on a date with somebody in Los Angeles where the focal point is not what do you do was very, very unique. You know, our date started with like, so tell me, like, do you have siblings? Like, where are you from?
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning.
Nice.
And we actually closed down the sushi restaurant. Like we were there till close and we had such a lovely time that he was like, hey, do you want to go to the bar next door and keep talking? And I was like, sure.
Fun.
So we went to the bar next door. We closed that down too. And he basically told me, he's like, I would love to go on another date with you. And to be told on your first date, hey, let's do this again. You're like, this is unheard
Hell
of,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been really exciting. Like, I have nailed this.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's still something that I think now when I look back on it, I have this thought of like, what happened? How did it change so much from like there to like getting to this point?
Yeah.
Because if you had told me on that first date, hey girl, guess what? I would have been like, no.
This
Tony?
guy?
Of course not.
No. Okay, well, let's make our own way there. But all right. Did you? So you guys go home alone, like on the first date, but with a promise to meet up again.
Yes, and again, I can't emphasize enough like how polite and what a gentleman he was. You know, when he walked me to my car, and he was before I got in my car, he was like, "Hey, is it okay if I kiss you?" And I was like thinking in my head, did you just ask me permission? That's so sure, you know?
Yeah.
But I think even just asking like, hey, is that okay? It was just very considerate, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, he was quite lovely. So I went in my car, he went in his car, and I remember driving home being like, cool.
Nice.
Great first date.
Nice. Did you put on a triumphant song to listen to on the way home?
I did. I'm so lame.
What'd you listen to?
So lame. You know, I don't remember what it was, but I definitely turned up whatever I was listening at the time. Like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. You yell out your window, I'm in love, something like that.
Like, that was the best first date ever.
Yeah. No, that's great. So then were you guys back on the text afterwards, or like? You know?
He would text me every day. Like it didn't take long for him to kind of become a part of my routine. He would call me randomly when he was in the car and just be like, hey, I want to talk. And I'm like, okay, great, let's talk.
Nice.
And it wasn't too long after our second date that we started to see each other every week.
Okay.
And yeah, so it very quickly went from a first date that was formal, a second date, to basically hanging out every week, and not even necessarily like on a date, but just seeing each other every week.
Okay.
I don't want to say that like we fell in love right away, because it really wasn't that. But I think there was this sense of, I think you might be my person, and I don't want to jump ahead,
Yeah.
but I think you might be.
Yeah.
And there's something very exciting when you think you've found, the one.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no better feeling in the whole world.
Yeah.
Falling head over heels is a great time. It's really fun.
Yeah, it is. It's very fun. It's very fun.
So he wasn't guarded at all in those initial like couple of weeks. It doesn't sound like he had a wall up, which, given that he's been in big movies, that's kind of surprising.
Oh, he had a wall up when it came to personal, private details regarding his career.
Okay.
So, for example, like on our first date, he told me about, the first project that he had ever gotten. He basically told me the story of getting cast in the Grand Budapest Hotel without ever saying the name of the movie. So, for example, he was like, I got cast in this film. We filmed in Germany, or sorry, wherever it was. If we filmed in Europe, and it was really cold. And he told me his experiences of working on Grand Budapest without explicitly saying it. And that was a lot of the dialogue between us when we first started dating and talking. He never would say the title of a project that he did or anything like that. It was always kind of like implied. So he was very careful to give me more of that kind of information.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was very guarded about that. And even though, like I said, on our first date, I knew what film he was talking about. I very much clocked like, okay, he does not want it to be about the fact that he was in this movie. And I'm perfectly okay with that. So, I'm not dating you for that reason. So we can approach your career and your accolades however you want.
Yes.
But yeah, he was guarded.
I mean, I guess the other thing I want to just ask you about is, you're aware of the sort of the social hierarchy of the universe, which is that Hollywood actors are at the top. There are A-listers, there are B-listers, it is stratified. Now, I will go out on a limb and say that maybe he was a bit higher on this pecking order than you were. Were you aware of this kind of like social order and each other's position on it? Did this play into those early weeks?
100%. Yeah, I very much knew, even with my security in my own accomplishments, I very much knew that we came from, same industry, but like different worlds. And, obviously he has worked on much bigger films than I have. My background is more in the indie space. He's been in Academy Award-winning films and massive franchises. We don't come from the same sector of the industry. And it was I don't want to say it was a concern up front, but it was something that I was very open with him about. I do remember early on, I had a conversation with him and I asked him, is this an experiment to you? Like, is being with a quote normal person or non-famous person, is this something that you are experimenting with? Like, or do you genuinely, what is your intention in this? Because your entire circle is not my circle.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And so, so I did ask him.
What did he say?
I did ask him that. He said, oh, God, he's so charming. You have no idea how charming this man is.
You're still charmed. I can see his charming effect on you still playing up.
I know. It's so embarrassing. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm so not ashamed. But I remember we were in his kitchen and he said, no. He was like, no, I've never looked at you as, anything. I think in 2 years, you're going to be bigger than me. You know, he had said something to that effect. And I remember being like, ugh, this guy is so good. He's so good. He knows what to say.
Yeah. Tell me more about that, Tony. Tell me more about how I'm 2 years. Like, I've got 2 years. I can wait 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Tony is very charming. He's very funny. He is smart in some respects. And so, I think the where sort of everything kind of started to reveal itself in this sort of dark turn that this relationship inevitably did take was words are very, very pretty, and he maybe has the prettiest of words. But I started to pick up how things were not really what they were being presented as. And that did become a problem as more time went on.
Okay.
But very early on, I did feel like, especially when we were hanging out too, when he eventually started to introduce me to his friends, I felt very different.
Okay. So, like, one of the first times that you met his friends, set the scene. What happened?
Okay, so it was a movie night. It was the day before Tony asked me to be his girlfriend. And I guess his friends had been telling him, like, you cannot ask this girl to be your girlfriend until we meet her first. Very classic scenario. So he invited me over to a movie night at his house, which again, me being like a cinephile, I'm like, this is great. Like, what an environment to meet everybody. Yeah. So we go over, I meet his older brother, his closest friends come by, and everybody is very lovely and charming. But obviously from a different social status than I am. I think I don't, I'm not talking down on myself by recognizing where I am in the hierarchy. It's not a negative. It's just, it's different. And so, like, for example, when you're like out with friends and if you're going to order Postmates, and maybe this isn't so crazy, but to me, this was crazy. It's like you pick one place and everybody orders from the same restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, like everybody that night, they all ordered like Postmates from their own restaurants that they wanted to eat at. And we're talking about like Sugarfish and like these really expensive spots that like people, and I remember thinking like, this is crazy.
Like from all different parts of the city.
From all different parts of the city. Like there was no thought of like, oh yeah, let's all order from one place because that's like the most cost-effective thing to do. It was like, no, I'm going to spend $60 on my meal because I want to eat here. And I just thought that was so wild.
Wow. What a sort of isolationist, non-communal way of living as well. Right. I don't quite know why, but that feels a little assholey to me.
Yes. And I remember thinking like, okay, that's different. But, again, that's their world. That's not my world. But I'll say like this particular night was a very important precedent was set this night. So obviously the Postmates thing, you can take that however you want. But I remember we all sat down, we watched the movie. And just like, Tony, some of his friends who were in that room were models, other actors who have been in massive franchises, multi-million-dollar films. But, we sat down, we watched this movie, and we get to the end of the movie, and Tony's house, he has a giant projector, right? So it's like we're projecting the movie on the wall, the movie ends, and all of a sudden Tony starts playing my very first music video. And my very first music video I made with, I'm an independent musician and filmmaker. My very first music video, it's called Hide. It's on YouTube. You can see that it is a low budget music video. I made it with my film friends for not a lot of money at all. And, you can tell it's very lo-fi.
Also, it's your first.
It was the first. It's the first one.
You were experimenting and learning.
Yes. And first also song that I ever released. And he starts playing it on his projector. And all of his friends are like, what is this? And then they're like, oh, that's you. And I remember like my face just started to get like redder and redder and redder. And I tried to get up. Like I was like, I actually don't want to be in the room. Like I'm like, I'm gonna go. Like I wanted to like just like go in the bathroom. And Tony physically held me on the couch. Like he would not let me get up and like made me sit and just like sit through this incredibly embarrassing situation. Like I honestly truly felt like I was being hazed.
Yeah.
And I could see his friends, like once they realized that it was me, they were like very gracious in sort of being like, oh, like, yeah, that song was actually like catchy and like, oh, that was good. But remember, you're talking about a room of people who are used to being on, you know, $80 million film sets, $50 million film sets, like massive, massive productions.
Damn.
And then you're having them watch my little baby thing. They know that I'm also like an indie filmmaker as well. And like, that was a very, very bizarre, almost like visual representation of like, I'm here, you're there. And I remember when it was done, like Tony turned to me and he was like, oh, was that not okay for me to do that? And I remember being like, I guess it's fine, you know? Like it was very, very bizarre.
Did he
very, very bizarre.
Did he seem to think it was a joke, or was he like, what was his mood as this was going down?
I think that he was kind of making fun of my project in front of everybody. And I think he wasn't like explicitly making fun of it. But I think when you all of a sudden, like basically put the girl that you're dating on blast in front of everybody, you know, it's very, when you're a musician or an actress or an indie, you know, filmmaker in any capacity, you don't like show people your music unprompted. You don't show somebody your film unprompted. It's not a good look.
Yeah.
And so to force everybody to watch my song and then in my video and to have an opinion about it is like uncomfortable for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, because everybody has to be sort of put in this like forced politeness. And my face was so red. I mean, if you're physically holding somebody down on the couch and making them watch something, surely you know that this is like not an okay
This is not
thing.
working. This is not what you need. The other people in the room, were they kind of like, hey, Tony, let it go? Like, or were they sort of chuckling nervously, or were they like, what was the reception?
At the start of it, it was like everybody was kind of getting ready to like make fun of it. And then when they noticed that it was me, they were like, oh, they're like, this is so great. And like, oh, that song's really catchy or whatever. Like they really did try to recover, but I could tell everybody was kind of uncomfortable by it. It felt very like frat, you know, fraternity kind of like hazing sort of environment. And of course, my only response, like I just met everybody in this room. I'm trying to make a good impression as like, you know, I want Tony to ask me to be his girlfriend. We had been dating for a good amount of time at this point. And it was very much like, that was a bit odd. I don't know. You know, it was a very strange environment.
So did you leave that night, or did you just stick around?
No, I left that night. I left like with everybody else. And I even got in the car and I called one of my close friends and I told him, it's like, hey, this sort of situation. So I have one close friend from high school that during the entirety that Tony and I were dating before it became official, I would sort of like ask him like and give him updates and tell him all these things. So I remember I called him and I was like, hey, do you think like, is that normal? And he was like, I don't know. I think that's kind of weird. Like my friends were actually very much protective of me when I started to engage and talk and date Tony. They were very much like on the fence about, is this a good idea or not? So, yeah.
Okay. And did you bring it up with Tony? Did you text him and say, hey, that made me uncomfortable?
I actually didn't, because that night, when, like when he turned to me on the couch and he was like, oh, is that not okay? I was kind of like, oh, yeah, like it's fine. It's not a big deal. I think being a romantic is sort of a plague, because you kind of sort of like bypass certain things because you like just want it to work,
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, oh, well, maybe his intention like wasn't actually that bad,
Yeah.
Oops.
Okay, all right, but it feels like you glimpsed a shadow in his character, maybe, or certainly in the relationship. How far in were you by this point?
We were 3 months and some change. So, 3 months of like consistent dating and talking. For me, I was kind of like, okay, I would like to be like exclusively his girlfriend. We're adults. If you haven't decided at this point, then like maybe it's not a match. I think after 3 months, you kind of know if you want to keep talking to somebody or not.
Yeah.
Especially because we were exclusively dating, as far as I know. I wasn't talking to anybody else, and I don't think he was talking to anybody else either.
Can I ask, were you concerned that it was just sex?
Oh, we didn't even sleep together.
There was no sex?
No.
This feels like something we should explore. Why not?
It's so interesting. I've never been asked this question. So he set the rules from the beginning. And he told me that he was not going to sleep with me for the first 3 months. Because he said that, and this might be TMI, but oh well, he said that like he often gets bored and he didn't want to get bored. And so that was not a part of the equation. And I said, okay.
And how
sure.
did you feel about that?
I think I'm a very patient person, and I'm also a serial monogamous. I've always been in very long relationships. And so for me, it's like, okay, he had told me from the beginning, I've never had an official girlfriend before. This is all very new to me. I really like you. I think you might be my person. And so I was very much like, okay, if you're learning how to be, with a singular person, okay, if that makes you comfortable, let's do it. I'm in this for the long haul, and I don't want you to get bored of me. So let's avoid that.
Let's avoid sex.
So
I can do.
I was like, sure. I was like, sure, then, if that's a big thing.
Yeah.
But again, just sort of like the music video scenario with like the very different worlds, obviously, that we're a part of. I think the constant, like the precedent that he set from the beginning of, I get bored easily. That was another thing that kind of, planted a seed in my subconscious that sort of grew throughout our relationship.
That's not flattering.
It's not a great thing to sort of know from the beginning the person that you're dating has a high probability of getting bored of you.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it's very stressful.
Also quite
very stressful.
Also quite manipulative. Whether it was accidentally manipulative or deliberately manipulative, it just puts you on the back foot the whole time.
Yeah, you definitely start to. I felt like every move had to be calculated. In order to protect his comfort. I almost felt like I was dating like a baby deer. And I'm like, okay, I don't want my deer to get spooked. So we'll
run off.
We'll do these. Yes. I was like, I don't want you to run off. So if this makes you comfortable, then I will do that. Little baby deer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what was the next big moment that gave you doubt?
So let's see. The day after movie night, that's when he asked me to be his girlfriend. So I was like, yes, okay, I'm in. I feel this is great. He obviously cares about me. We're officially a couple. That allowed a reprieve in our relationship for a while. But it did get to a place where we would only see each other once a week. And also sometimes when we would see each other, it wasn't like an intimate setting. It could be an event or a movie screening or a red carpet thing. And so if that ends up being the one time that you see each other and you're not spending time just you two, that's a concern.
Yeah.
And then, he always sort of kept his schedule very packed. So other nights of the week, he would be at dinner with other people or at events that he didn't invite me to or parties that he didn't invite me to. And I remember being that's sort of strange.
Yeah.
He would tell me things, for example, friends of his and people in his life would want to go on double dates. They wanted to meet me. And he would say no.
He's really keeping you in the dark.
Yes, very much. And that is something that became repeatedly more obvious and more of a problem, was him telling me about, yes, my friends want to go on a double date, but I'm not quite ready yet. Or, oh yeah, I have these, executives that want to meet you, but I'm not quite ready yet. And so there were lots of things that he just wasn't quite ready to fully invite me into his world, which I think only greater created this sort of dynamic of, you really don't want me around this celebrity A-list 1% setting, do you?
Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
When it comes to weight loss, no two people are the same. That's why Noom builds personalized plans based on your unique psychology and biology. Take Brittany. After years of unsustainable diets, Noom helped her lose 20 pounds and keep it off.
I was definitely in a yo-yo cycle for years of just losing weight, gaining weight, and it was exhausting.
And Stephanie. She's a former D1 athlete who knew she couldn't outtrain her diet, and she lost 38 pounds.
My relationship to food before Noom was never consistent.
And Evan, he can't stand salads, but he still lost 50 pounds with Noom.
I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. Even through the pickiness, Noom taught me that building better habits builds a healthier lifestyle. I'm not doing this to get to a number. I'm doing this to feel better.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom users compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Did you know 1 in 2 women wear the wrong foundation? Matching foundation is hard, but Il Maquillage makes it easy. Take the Power Match quiz to find a perfect match in seconds, customized to your unique skin tone, undertone, and coverage needs. With 600,000 5-star reviews, Woke Up Like This is our best-selling foundation for a reason. Available in 50 shades of weightless natural coverage. And with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. Just pay shipping. Take the quiz at ilmaquillage.com/quiz. That's ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/get started for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
I understand he did invite you to a red carpet event. Can you tell me what happened?
Yeah, so we actually went to two events. The first one was earlier on in our career. Oh my gosh, earlier on in our dating experience. It really was kind of like a job,
Yeah.
so maybe that's a good descriptor. But the first event that we had gone to was a movie premiere for one of his friends, and there was a massive red carpet. It was a very big movie premiere. And the other girls that were there, it was a group of us. And so his friends, girlfriends, like they wanted to walk the red carpet. And I remember Tony looked at me and he was like, "Do you want to do the red carpet?" And I was like, no, it's okay. Because I could tell at that point in our relationship, he was not fully comfortable with this idea of it being a publicly known thing.
Okay.
And so I was like, no,
and walking
of course
the
not.
red carpet would have meant there were photographers. It would have been basically like a public announcement that Tony was dating you.
Yes. This was a very big movie premiere. A lot of like bigger stars were in this film. And so, I think the one thing that people don't realize is that, like, if you walk the red carpet as a couple, like, obviously if they are relevant to the project, like, it's going to end up online. Yeah. Tony has never had a public girlfriend. He's been very careful and curated in making sure that nobody knows anything about his dating history. Yeah. And so I was with him not for any kind of public reason. And so in that first moment, I was like, no, I know you're not comfortable with it. I'm not going to make you do this thing. In hindsight, should I have done it? Probably. I probably shouldn't have been so passive with only supporting like his needs. But at the time, I didn't care about a red carpet photo. And honestly, at that particular event, because I was with a group of his friends who are very wealthy and very gorgeous, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to walk the red carpet with them, not for any reason other than like, you just look a little different.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm okay. I don't know if I'm ready for that sort of perception. Okay. So the second event that we went to was not a big movie premiere. It was an Oscars party that had a red carpet. I was his plus one. I had asked him, hey, what is like the dress code for this event? Like, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'll get the details. He forwarded me the details and then began the most like stressful 2 weeks of my life trying to find a dress for this event, because what a lot of people don't know, these red carpet events and Oscar parties and things like that, people hire stylists to dress them. And a stylist's day rate like starts at $1,000 a day for them to go shop and pull clothes for you. And then that doesn't include the rentals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I do not have the money for that. So I'm going to department stores, I'm shopping online and buying all of these different dresses and like gonna try them on and then return them and narrow it down. I mean, it was like absolutely so stressful as a regular citizen trying to like prep for something like this. And, I finally found like 2 dresses that didn't make me feel so self-conscious. And I had sent them to him because I didn't want to embarrass myself, but also I didn't want to embarrass him. Being somebody's girlfriend that's in the public eye, that's never had one before, there is a pressure to that. You know, there is like all of his friends, their girlfriends are either models or famous actors. So imagine you're also a girlfriend in that group, and you're not a famous model and you're not a famous actor. It's a very different kind of pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Did he like the dresses that you chose when you sent him photos?
Yeah, Tony picked my outfit for the first red carpet event that we went to. Okay. And so, yeah, for the second one, he did as well. And I honestly, again, such a charming person. I don't think he would have told me, like, you don't look good. You know, I don't think at that point he would have said, like, oh, both of these dresses are ugly. Okay. So he was kind, and he picked he said that dress worked, and I said great. And yeah, that was that. And I because of my film background, I do have friends who do like hair and makeup and stuff. Nice. So I had like called in a favor. Yeah. I'd asked my friend Alex, she does all of my hair and makeup for like my music videos and all this stuff. I was like, Alex, can you do my hair and makeup for this event? Like, so she was very gracious and like drove to my house and did my hair and makeup for me. We didn't carpool to the event, so I took an Uber myself, and I actually remember, like, I had the Uber kind of, like, drop me off a little bit,
around the corner?
And then I walked. Yeah, I was like, can you just send me over there?
This is like high school. They're like, I don't want anyone to see my parents.
Yes. It was very much like, can you just like have me go over there? And he took a black car though. I know he got dropped off in a black car.
All right. Okay. So you get to the Oscars red carpet, the Oscars party red carpet. What happens?
And so then we went to the party, which was on a movie lot. And so go to the movie lot, and it's like very high security. There are massive names there. I saw, for example, Jordan Peele and, Zoe Deschanel and a bunch of people from The Office and, people, big names. There were very big names there. And, we arrive as couples do. But I remember thinking like, okay, now at this point in our relationship, is he going to feel comfortable taking a photo with me and sort of like being like, this is my girlfriend? Are you finally going to be proud of who is next to you? And that was the subtext of what I was searching for. And that was really important to me because of everything that was, I think on like a human level, nobody wants to be a secret girlfriend.
No, of course.
And even more so than that, again, the precedent of like, I'm an indie person, he is not, he gets bored easily, I do not, this was like a very big moment of like, okay, are we past all of that? And so I remember like we get up to go take our photo as like everybody does. It's sort of more of, in this setting, like a campy souvenir thing versus the first one, which was like a big movie premiere. And so we get up and I kind of like look at him and he looks at me and I could tell he was uncomfortable. And that's when the whole, I need to take a photo by myself for my stylist.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, that's what he said to me. And I was like, okay, sure. Obviously, stylists need photos for their portfolio, and that's completely fine and totally valid. What was happening behind those words was like, I'm still not comfortable with you yet. And I remember just thinking like, how are we still not there?
At this point, how many months in are you?
Like 5 or 6 months.
5 or 6 months, and he still doesn't want to go public with you as his girlfriend.
Yeah, and I think, again, I can't emphasize enough that like Tony Revolori's reputation does not get diminished because he has a girlfriend. He does not have, he's not a K-pop star
No, totally.
or Harry Styles or Joe Jonas, where if they have, you know, public relationships, the fan club goes crazy. Like, I don't think that there would have been any negative feedback from people knowing that Tony was dating an indie filmmaker and musician. Like, that's not an embarrassing
No, would have been
thing,
completely
and
normal.
completely normal and completely fine.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess that was sort of one of those things where you just kind of go like, man, like, even in this setting, like, even now.
So did you get to the
So yeah,
did you get to the party feeling kind of bummed out?
no, I think my optimism sort of like kicked back in. And I think because, you know, Tony and I had built all of these like plans together. We had talked so much about the future and all of these things we were going to do that in my mind, I sort of thought, okay, well, we have time. You know, surely we're not breaking up anytime soon. There's nothing to indicate that that's happening. And even though I was not disappointed, but like, oh, okay, I guess this isn't the moment yet, I didn't think that there wasn't going to be another moment. Yeah. And so it was still like, okay, you know, I'm with my boyfriend and I'm also here to, you know, let him do his networking thing. And I'm going to be supportive. And like I said, play that spectator role. And I was very much okay with it because I super admired his ability and his career. And, you know, I think that's like what you should do as a partner, is be supportive. And in certain settings, that's just the role that you play.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, that to me sounds like a bit of a game changer. But then I understand that there was another event that happened not long after the Oscar event that really gave you reason to doubt your future together. Can you walk me through it?
Oh, man. Yes. So he took me on a date to his favorite restaurant, which was a very big deal. And I remember at that point in our relationship, you know, we've gone through all of these different things. All right, I think it's time to open up in a more romantic way, as one does. We're on a date.
That's what happens.
I feel like you should. Yeah. And so I should have never said this in hindsight, but I told him, I was like, I know we haven't known each other for a long time. You know, we're meeting in our later 20s and you've lived so much life and I've lived so much life, you know, with our careers and everything. But I'm really enjoying our relationship. Like, I just feel like I have this connection with you. and he looks at me and he goes, sorry, it's just so stupid. He looks at me and he goes, oh, I get that all the time. He's like, you're just saying that because you grew up watching me. And so you subconsciously have this idea that you have this connection with me because you're used to seeing me on TV. And I remember thinking like, what?
What?
Like,
what?
Excuse me?
What a big statement that completely overlooks your needs.
Guys, like, that is the most batshit thing I have ever heard.
Yeah.
I'm like, forget about the fact that I'm your girlfriend and I'm saying that, like, hey, I think there's something here. Do you feel it too? You immediately go to, yeah, well, you know, that's just what happens when you're a fan. It's like, excuse me?
Oh, God damn it. That's so annoying.
Yeah.
Also, I got to point out, Tony's not the most famous guy in the whole world. He's not Tom Cruise. It's not like you grew up watching him. He's been in a couple of movies that we've all seen, but it's not like he's one of these big faces that is sort of a corporation unto its own. He's a guy who's been in a few movies.
Yeah, and you know, we're very similar in age. It's like Tony, how the hell would I have grown up watching you?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Yeah, also that.
Yeah, like, that doesn't even make sense, you know? I'm like, I'm like, it's actually physically impossible for me to have grown up watching you.
That's wild. So I mean, like,
yeah.
what sort of effect did that have on your dinner together?
Oh, man, I called him out on it.
Oh, yeah?
I called him out on it. I was like, because that night he had also made a comment that was so very strange, which was he said to me, I know you like me more than I like you.
Flattering.
Yes. And I told him, I was like, how would I know how much you like me? You've never said, I love you or I like you this much. I'm like, how does that even make sense? And he was like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. So I do take that back. And I'm like, where is your head at? You know, and I think like this is where the worlds just get so blurred. You know, I used to tell my mom and my friends, I wish he wasn't famous because I just like him, but the fame thing makes certain things weird.
So weird.
And this was one of those situations where like a totally normal cheesy comment from me should have just been met with like oh babe, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, Tony told me that like he didn't, like, it would take him a long time to even use pet names. So I mean, I'm dealing with somebody where like I'm just trying to like gauge how much do you even actually care about me on a dinner date. And that's the response. You're like, oh my goodness, we are just in very different planes.
Fame makes people's brains so weird. Like Tony in a parallel universe is probably like just a really lovely guy. But Tony, who's a celebrity in LA, his brain just is a bit cooked.
And you know, I've thought so much about this because I've obviously during our relationship I tried to be very empathetic and really understanding of how, you know, we come from two different upbringings. And I do recognize, and I think I used this as a justification for certain behaviors that were actually red flags. But, you know, Tony became famous at a very young age, you know, mid-teens, 14 or 15 or whenever. All of a sudden, you're going to parties with massive A-listers, and that is now the world that you are growing up with. So your formative teenage into early adulthood years are through that lens. And so it's like, yes, he's not A-list, but that became his world very young.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so,
yeah.
You know, like, of course that would influence everything.
Yeah.
You know, if you're at parties with A-listers and that's the behavior that you're seeing, then of course you're going to adapt that same behavior.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of the weirdness came from. And I really tried to like work through it and understand it. And but I also don't know he's as aware of that as I am, being like an outsider versus that being his experience as like his human experience.
Yes. Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think just by virtue of you being more invested in the relationship, you've thought about it, whereas he's been like, she wasn't picking up what I was putting down, and, you know, like, I didn't need to think about this.
Right. Because, you know, he did set that precedent very early on in our relationship that he was in more important or had celebrity.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one time he got kind of drunk and he was drunk texting me, and this was before I was his girlfriend. And he was like, and he was like, I'm very nervous asking you this. He's like, but I drank a little, so I feel comfortable. He's like, and he told me, what movies have you seen me in? Like, what movies did you know
I love this.
I was in?
I love this. What did you say?
So he said to me, he was like, what movies did you know I was in before you matched with me on Raya? And he said something to the effect of, like, how about I guess? And I was like, okay. No, I said, I knew you from 3 different movies. And he said, how about I guess? And I said, sure. And he was like, Grand Budapest Hotel, because of course you're, a film director and you went to film school. Spiderman, because you're nerdy and everybody's seen Spiderman. And then the third one was Dope. He was like, I bet you've seen Dope.
Okay. These feel like pretty solid guesses to me.
They were very solid guesses. The man is aware of what people know him from.
Yeah. Acutely aware.
And so he was correct.
Did he ever just sit you down and read you the riot act? Or did he, like, someone, one of his friends, or just be like, hey, all right, so let's make this official. You're about to date me, a mid-tier celebrity. And, like, did that ever happen?
You want to know what's so unfortunate for him? Is very early on, I asked him, I was like, do you want me to sign an NDA? I was like, oh.
That's why you're talking to me right now.
And I had said, like, do you want me to? Like, I'll do it. I'll sign one. And he said, no.
No, babe. It's all
but you
cool.
better believe... You better believe the next girl that he dated.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's signing NDAs now.
First date, NDA.
Yeah. Yeah, but I did ask, so that's his karma.
Okay, all right. But there was never any sort of like onboarding process for, like, welcome to the Hollywood lifestyle. Here's what you need to know.
Welcome.
Yeah, that's right.
No, there was never any like initiation in that way that was formal. I think it was more just like these subtleties, right? Like the music video part, at the movie night, or him telling me about his 2 phones, or, what else? The movie thing. What movies have you seen me in? Like, it was more like subtleties throughout versus here is a bulleted list of like how to behave and act.
Yeah. I'm guessing. All right, so Notting Hill, right? Notting Hill is a fictional depiction of what you went through in real life. Did you guys ever watch Notting Hill together, or joke about it, refer to it?
Never.
Never. Okay.
Not even once.
That's funny. I think I'd have, I don't know, just put it on one night, be like, you want to watch this? It's my favorite movie, and just to see what happens.
Oh gosh. I mean, if he had hung out with me more than once a week, perhaps it could have happened.
Yeah.
But
it feels as though over the last couple of beats, there's been a couple of negative experiences. And I'm curious how it came to an end.
Oh gosh. Yeah, oh man. It's so tough because, even though we only saw each other once a week in person, we talked to each other every single day. I mean, we were very, very much integrated into each other's lives, into each other's routines, good morning texts and, conversating all throughout the day and sending memes and good night texts and random calls stuck in traffic, like this was somebody that I talked to every single day. And there was no indication before our breakup that we were breaking up. But the breakup was horrific.
All right. Tell me about it.
The breakup was really bad. Either on April 18th or April 19th, roughly, Tony and I go out to dinner. I show up late and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so late. And he's so, it's fine. It's no big deal. We hug and it's like, whatever, lovely. We sit down to eat and we're having a very nice dinner and conversation. And out of nowhere, he turns to me and he says, "What do you think about our sex life?" And I go,
Yeah. Go.
and I sort of giggle. I'm like, well, we don't see each other enough. You know, we only see each other once a week, and sometimes it's an event. You know, I told him, I was like, I think we have really great, obviously, conversational chemistry. We get along super well. We have all of these very similar interests. We're great in that regard. I was like, and in regards to intimacy, like in order to build intimacy, like you have to see each other more. And
totally.
I think an important thing to note is like Tony never let me sleep over. You know, so we had never even like spent the night together in that way. And so I had told him like, yeah, we just have to see each other more.
Well, so I just want to clarify a few things, and I'm, you know, I can feel my awkwardness here, but you know, sex is part of relationships, so I feel like I should ask. So you had sex by this point, despite his little speech about celibacy and, you know,
right.
I'll get bored of you.
Right.
Was like sleeping with Tony comfortable, or did it always feel like this big event or this highly curated sort of experience that he was gifting you?
No, it certainly wasn't like performative or anything. I think honestly, it just wasn't frequent. You know, it was a very, very strange. I guess imagine this. Imagine your partner sets the precedent very early on that they don't want you to initiate, but then later that becomes a problem. And so that's why I think when the question came up, it was like, well, this is very fixable. Like, it's if you're giving me permission, great, you know, and not to be like crude or vulgar, but my thought would be that any man would be excited by that.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I was like, great, perfect. This is fixable.
This is easily fixable.
Yeah.
There is a precedent for this. Men generally go for sex. That's true.
Yeah. And so I was like, I agreed with him. I was like, this is an area that we absolutely can work on. And it's very simple. We just have to see each other more, because you can't work on that if you don't see each other.
What was his response? Was he kind of like, "Oh, I hadn't thought of it like that"? You know, like
no.
What did he say?
It was very like stoic. The energy shifted like tremendously. It went from being like lighthearted, fun dinner per usual, how we hang out, to like, oh, this is serious. This is like a very serious thing. And I remember, like, again, that night would have been a great night to be like, perhaps we should go home together. But instead, like, I went home and he went home. I'll just be blunt, whatever. I was like,
please.
I just was like, okay, like when he walked me into my car, I just like started making out with my boyfriend, because I was like, why not?
Yeah.
And
cool.
He
Good.
like very much was like not super receptive to it. And I was like, this is really freaking weird. Like, this is very strange. I feel very strange right now. This is not good. I was like, whatever just happened, whatever switch just got flipped, I was like, the Titanic is sinking. I'm like, this is, my girl intuition brain was like, uh-oh, this is a problem. I wake up the next morning and I'm supposed to go to his house. I'm supposed to drive to his house.
Okay.
And he texts me and he says, I'm going to drive to you. And I go, oh my God. I was like, I'm getting broken up with. I was like, he's
here we go.
Driving to me. I'm not going there. This is it. And I just like start to sink, because keep in mind, his birthday party is in 3 days. I'm supposed to meet his mom that Sunday. You know, like I'm supposed to meet his mom. His birthday's coming up.
It feels a bit strategic, doesn't it? He's like calling it quits before the birthday.
100%. So he drives to my apartment, and I can just tell, like, you feel the energy. And he tries to get me. He's like, do you want to go eat? Should we go eat? And I was like, no, I'm obviously not hungry. I don't want to go get like a sandwich with you.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, just say it, because I know it's happening. And I was like, so just say it. Like, don't, like, you've already driven to my house and you're doing this thing that has I have no idea, like, we've never even fought. Like, where, you know. And he sits down and he says to me, it's such an awful thing to tell anybody. He says, I think you are sexually unattractive. And because my brain has decided that you are sexually unattractive, I cannot get over that.
Oh, my God.
So I am not attracted to you in that way, which as a woman is like probably one of the meanest things to be told. Like, even if you think that's true, you don't say that.
No.
Like, it's not like a unknown thing that like men will, excuse my French, but like men will fuck a pillow. You know what I mean? To be told, like, I'm so repulsed by your physical body that I am now breaking up with you is like one of maybe like the worst things that you can be told.
Yeah.
And then it just progressively got weirder. Like, it didn't stop there. So he tells me that, and I'm like, are you sure? Like, when? Okay. And then it's like uninvited to his birthday party. So now I'm thinking about, like, I have birthday gifts I have to return. Like, I have to unwrap birthday presents and return them now. So that was a part of it. And then he says something to the effect of, like, you know, but I know you're going to be such a big director one day, and you're going to win an Oscar. And when you do, I'm going to be there in the back, and I'm going to be the first one clapping for you and cheering you on. And I was like, did you just La La Land me? Like, did I just get La La Landed? Like, what the hell? I was like, what? And, yeah. And so it was like all of these things. And then he just walked out of my apartment, went full no contact. And like,
really,
that was it.
Silence.
It was silent. And I remember thinking, like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
But he did not unfollow me on social media. And so I'm literally seeing, like, my boyfriend, now ex, having a great time at his birthday party.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
You know, doing all of this stuff. And I'm, like, devastated. I'm crushed. I'm like, oh, what just happened? I just got annihilated. And I remember, like, on his birthday that Sunday, I texted him and I left him a voice message. I was like, hey, I'm not trying to be weird. It's just your birthday, and I just want to wish you a happy birthday.
Yeah.
And we texted that day into the next day, and he said something like, I'm, like, sad. And I was like, well, yeah, like, this is sad. Why did this is a sad feeling. And that was, like, really the last time that we communicated. And it was like somebody that, like, you're talking about, we had like a to-do list of like things that we were going to do together. Like, Tony wrote me a short film that I was going to direct and he was going to act in. Like, we had talked about projects we were going to do together, and I was going to teach him how to budget, and he was going to, do all of these things. He had talked about me, the next Wes Anderson movie that he got cast in. He was going to bring me on set to be with the other girlfriends and wives, and how much like Wes Anderson was going to love meeting me, and all of these things. And it was like one dinner, one conversation, 2 to 3 days later, he's completely gone.
Gone. I mean, you had a real relationship. I think when we started this conversation, I was like, this will be interesting because, power dynamics and celebrity is interesting. But really, you went through a relationship and then it was like, just went off like a light switch. And it sounds really heartbreaking. And I'm sorry it ended like that. I'm sorry he said those things to you as well. Like, Jesus Christ, what a mean, awful thing to say.
I think it's a horrible thing to say to somebody, even if you think it's true. And
just shut your mouth. Even if you think it's true, just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, you just don't, I think I had been very open with Tony, and he had shared like certain vulnerabilities and insecurities with me in our relationship, as you do. And, I have very significant abandonment trauma from when I was a kid. And I had told Tony, I was like, very early on, I was like, look, if we break up, I was like, just be nice about it. Like, just if you could not do like this, that would be great, because like it would devastate me, because I know my traumas, even though I've worked through it. And like he quite literally, and this is a characteristic of avoidant attachment styles, it's called being discarded, where like you wake up and all of a sudden this person that's been in your life, that's a constant, just throws you out. And you're sort of left with this like, where did you go? And so you're almost like grieving somebody. And for me, it was grieving like not only this relationship where there was no bracing for impact. It was like, oh, no, this is happening very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was like the relationship imploded. And then on top of that, I'm grieving all of these future plans that we had discussed and built together that I guess we're just not going to do at all, ever.
Yeah.
It was really, really, I mean, I was crushed. It took like any sort of self-worth that I had just was because it was such a layered thing. It was like, imagine you're getting rejected by your boyfriend, but then in a way you're almost getting rejected by Hollywood because you're basically being told like, you're physically so unattractive that I don't care that we've had this relationship. I just can't get past that.
That's awful. That's awful. So was this some of the motivation behind going public about all of this on TikTok?
Yeah, totally. 100%. 100%. Yeah, 100%. Because, one time, Tony told me one time because he was vulnerable with me in certain settings, and he told me that being publicly called out, he said, would be the absolute worst nightmare for him. He was like, I could not, he was like, if I went on one of those punked shows and like they punked me and then I realized like it was a joke and not real, like I would have so much anxiety from that. And he said, like, if there was any sort of public controversy surrounding me or somebody publicly called me out, I would have so much anxiety about that. So he told me that, and I have a very good memory. I remember.
Yeah, he really underestimated the level playing field that TikTok has given us in the media industry. You don't need a megaphone anymore.
Yes.
You got TikTok.
Right.
Yeah. And
a lot of my friends and even some of my family very much advised against it.
What?
They very much told me not to.
Now, I think that is interesting. That is like an age-old tradition of like, when you're feeling hurt, when you're feeling angry, don't be publicly vulnerable. like keep your dirty laundry to yourself. But also, I'm curious why you ignored the advice of your parents and your friends.
You know, if you are a famous musician or actor or director and you have a public breakup, it's very, very common and normal to turn it into art. Taylor Swift is a billionaire because of it.
Seriously, yeah.
It is not a unknown thing, but the precedent and this idea that it was almost like a David and Goliath, like because I am a nobody batting up against somebody who is known, they were very concerned that the perception would be you are clout chasing, or, you know, people aren't going to want to work with you anymore because you're difficult or you're celebrity obsessed, or, you know, obviously all you care about is fame and you're using him for that. And my response was, this is not that. I was in a relationship with somebody. He was my boyfriend. He broke up with me in a horrible way. He broke my heart. And I don't think anybody, regardless of status, is safe from that. You know, like you, when you enter in a relationship with somebody, whether it's a romantic relationship or it's platonic, you know, between friends, you are taking on the responsibility of their feelings, and how you handle them is your responsibility, and how it ends in the aftermath is also your responsibility. So he really brought it upon himself for all of this to happen.
The song that you wrote about this experience.
It's a very niche song.
It's all right. We're into niche.
His voice is in it, which nobody noticed.
Okay.
Like I wrote the like hook of the song and like a lot of the lyrics the day that he broke up with me, because I was so mad. I think going through grieving stages, like the first initial emotion that I had, I was angry. I was like, I cannot believe you just said that to me. And you called me sexually unattractive when I have a video that you sent me where you say, "Hi, I miss you," which is how the song opens. So I pulled the audio from that video and I put that in the beginning of the song.
Oh my God. Look, I just got a few more questions.
Sure.
Really, I just got two. I got two questions. All right. So I think one of the biggest questions that's lingered over this whole story is sort of just like the nature of celebrity, the nature of fame, what it does to people.
Yeah.
And what did you learn?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned throughout our relationship, like there is a Tony underneath the surface that I very, very much was infatuated with. Like I saw Tony as that 14, 15-year-old teenager who went from being very unknown and in a, kind of, I think, single household family where, things, you don't have extreme wealth or, extreme resources or anything. His family, his whole family's Guatemalan, and he's got a lot of his family still in, Guatemala. And I see that 14-year-old who makes it big. And all of a sudden, your life changes and you can take care of your family and your mom, and you go from being this kind of like anxious, nerdy person to having to be in the spotlight. Yeah. And so like that's the Tony that I saw, that I thought was very human and interesting and relatable. The fame influence in our relationship, this idea of like what is normal and what is not, and are you a super fan and are you not a super fan, and can I invite you into my world, can I not? And that's really, really a tricky thing to navigate. And and it's not just him, it's also certain friends of his that I met, I could tell very much, like, to them that I was not relevant to the conversation. My world is too different, and they also don't even think to like ask normal questions like, what is your job? They know everybody that I met and that I interacted with. You can tell that they know I know who they are because they're very famous. And there's this very weird, not like upfrontness, right? Instead of being like, hi, I'm so and so. I know you probably know who I am, but it's very lovely to meet you. There is none of that, you know? It's this very like almost pretending like they try to act like I don't know who they are, but they know I know who they are. And so there's this very weird, you know, it's just very weird.
Yeah. That's very weird. That's a lot of mental acrobatics.
Totally. And like, that's really what it came down to was there's like this unsung layer. I used to say like the visual representation is like between Tony and I was a plexiglass.
Yeah.
And it's like I could see him. I could almost touch him. I was close to him. But that plexiglass was his celebrity and fame, and I just could not get through it no matter what I did.
Okay. So, I mean, I've talked about Notting Hill a few times, but is that the kind of the element that isn't quite encapsulated in Notting Hill? You know, like, is this like the fantasy that so many people have of like, oh, imagine if I was in Hollywood, or if I somehow penetrated that world and became part of that echelon? Is this the thing that we don't understand, is that you can never quite get into that world?
Absolutely. I think the hard reality is unless you are in that world, like on your own merit, you're never really going to be in that world. As much as I think Tony attempted to bring me into it, because of all of the conditioning and the things that he's experienced and dealt with, due to like his celebrity and fame, there was like that barrier.
It sounds to me like under those conditions, you did the absolute best you could.
Thank you.
That brings me to my last question here, and
sure.
Because so this was a relationship at its core. You know, it kind of doesn't matter who Tony was. It was just a love story in some ways.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what you learned about love.
You know, I think this was my first heartbreak. This was my first like heartbreak like this, like deeply affecting heartbreak. And I think, you know, having chemistry and connection, genuine with someone, is way more rare than people realize. I think when you're younger and you break up with somebody, you're like, oh, I'm going to meet somebody else. And as you get older, you realize that it's actually quite harder to meet somebody
seriously.
that you have a deeper connection with or chemistry with. And every relationship takes work.
It's very rare. Yeah.
It's very rare. And I guess the point of all of this is what I've learned about love is when you love someone, you love them.
Yeah.
And I think that is the hardest thing about all of this, is that it just hurts to love somebody.
Yeah. Although, for what it's worth, I think you're dealing with it well. You know, going viral on TikTok, making a video, making a music video, and especially talking to me. I think these are really good choices.
You know, I think so too.
Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing your story and your insights. I mean, I've been wondering about this for years. So you've answered all of my questions that I've ever had, which is quite a few.
Oh my goodness! No, I'm so glad to have been able to do this, and I hope that for anybody listening, I am not a crazy ex-girlfriend. This was very justified behavior.
I completely agree. In your shoes, I'd have done exactly the same thing.
Hi, I miss you.
Remember when you said you missed me? Well, I missed you too. Yeah, I meant it. Make you tremble with my scary soft voice. Since you're so dead inside, maybe then you'll come alive. Go back to the lobby. At least they know you're there. Paint all the nails pretty. I know you like the flair. Go back to the lobby. At least they know you're there. Go back to the lobby. 'Cause you don't belong anywhere. And I'm out.
In case you didn't catch it, you are listening to Myah's breakup song about Tony. And it's good, right? It's catchy. And you should absolutely check out Myah's other songs, her video clips, and her just general TikTok stuff online. She is Myah Makes Music, and she's on YouTube, she's on TikTok, and Instagram. That's spelled Myah, M-Y-A-H. Second part of it is just makes music, one word. Check her out and follow her. Today's episode was produced by Rachel Tuffrey. It was mixed by Jimmy Saunders, who also did our theme music, Daniela Cantu and Chloe Stelling are our interns. Our cover art is by Naomi Lee Beveridge, and this whole thing has been a Super Ill production.
'Cause I'm not rich or vain. Yeah, no one knows my name. Couldn't drive 40 minutes to see me. Keeping plans really wasn't easy. Thought we'd finish our list, but Flash loves his quiet time. And he's asleep by 9, except when there's another girl or dinner or a meeting or anything except being with me. And I'm out, 'cause I hate this town. Got my suitcase for when I touchdown. And I know you hate this sound, but it's too late, 'cause I'm recording now. And I bet you never thought I'd take it this far, but I like the plot. And I know you really tried to hide me. Well, guess the secret's out. Why not thank you for wasting my time? I can see a future. Why not thank you for being so blind? Like legally blind. Why not thank you for making a mess of me? Why not thank you for all your insecurities? And I'm out, 'cause I hate this town. Got my suitcase for when I touch down. And I know you hate this sound, but it's too late, 'cause I'm recording now. And I bet you never thought I'd take it this far, but I like the plot. And I know you really tried to hide me. Well, guess the secret's out.
So what the fuck, you sexy beast? Ah!
Oops.
Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/get started for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
Did you know 1 in 2 women wear the wrong foundation? Matching foundation is hard, but Il Maquillage makes it easy. Take the Power Match quiz to find a perfect match in seconds, customized to your unique skin tone, undertone, and coverage needs. With 600,000 five-star reviews, Woke Up Like This is our best-selling foundation for a reason. Available in 50 shades of weightless natural coverage. And with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. Just pay shipping. Take the quiz at ilmaquillage.com/quiz. That's ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.